Alright, I'm taking a break from Bloomborough content. Mostly because as a new plane, there's not a lot of deep cuts to get into. Although there are all three Planeswalker guides are out now if you want to go check it out on the web. Instead, I'm going to talk about plants in Magic the Gathering. That's right, if you're the one who has responded to half my videos over the last 2 weeks asking for plants, you're getting your wish. But before that, I just want to note I will be at SCGCon Baltimore next week. I will definitely be there on Friday and hopefully Sunday. Saturday is a maybe because I am going to a vineyard thing that my wife booked, and you better believe I'm not skipping that for a Magic event. I like being married. Okay, so plants. Plant as a type didn't actually exist in Magic until the mid-2000s. For the first 10 years, it was typically something else. Creature types were not really solidified or anything before that point. So most early plants, or what are now plants from early Magic, are walls. And it makes a lot of sense for why they would be walls. Like a stone wall maybe could be a red card, is usually going to be an artifact, but walls of plants, like the Wall of Brambles here, make sense as a green card that can regenerate. When we jump forward in time a few years to lycanthrope, which is a pun of lycanthrope, different spellings, y'all. But lichen is obviously a fungus. This is a plant fungus creature. At least that's what it got typed later when they removed. Everyone had very specific types. When they fixed it, they made it a plant for some reason. But then the first one that really made sense was plant elemental, which is a plant elemental. The challenge with plants is where you draw the line between what is a plant and what is a elemental, because elementals often look like plants. Magic played around with that for a long time. Moss Dog is a hound that later got the plant type. But again, it's moss. Should it really be a plant? I thought moss is a fungus. Oh, hold up. I just Googled it and learned something new. Moss is a plant. Moss is not a fungus. This does make sense. So basically, it is a mobile variety of plant. It got played around with more when we got to Ravnica, but we'll get to that in a second. Trees or plants? I know, obviously, Jay. But what I mean is distinct from tree folk, which gets its own type, and likely won't change because tree folk like Ents are such a big part of fantasy that just changing them to plants probably. And we have things that care about tree folk. We have a lot of tree folk, typal stuff. But animated trees, trees that are either enchanted, have their own special properties or whatever, they show up as plants. Utopia tree, I should note, is also the first time we really got plant as a subtype. It wouldn't show up again until Ravnica 4 or 5 years later. On Ravnica, both the Golgari and the Selesnians have plant subtypes. Golgari zombies are unique from zombies that came before, as they're not pure magic. They're often integrated with plant or fungus to help animate them. Whereas the Selesnya has things like plant hydras. After this point, plants got sort of integrated more and more as things went on, but they wouldn't explode as a creature type until Zendikar. With Zendikar and Landfall, plants became a part of Magic in a big way. For the first time, plants were a small green token instead of just saprolings. Up until this point, saprolings owned that space. I'll talk about saprolings and thalids and what's going on with the fungus side of all this another time. But yeah, we got our first plant token. Notably, it was a 0/1 to distinguish it from saprolings, which were typically 1/1s, although later we would get 1/1 plants anyway. On Theros, we got the Caryatids, who are sort of not quite dryads, which is another weird space between what makes a dryad versus a plant. And then in the modern day, we often see plants used to be cute nods. For instance, a worm that is part beanstalk is a plant worm. Or back in Murders at Karlov Manor, we have Tangletrove kelp, which is a clue plant or planted evidence. And finally, just earlier this year, we got our first sapient group of plants. What I mean by that is that the cactus folk are our first real plant folk in Magic. There hasn't been a unified species behind it up until now, especially not one that takes on humanoid features. That's typically just been dryads or something like I talked about earlier. And there you have it. That's the history of plants in Magic the Gathering. Are you happy now, plant person? I'm just kidding. It's fine. I needed something to talk about today that wasn't Bloomborough because I'm waiting for more cards to come out.